What's going on, guys? K-Pioneer and welcome back. And in this video, I'll be featuring Fomantis in the Element Cup. Fomantis is extremely spammy with the combination of Fury Cutter and Leaf Blade, and also like its older sibling Lurantis, it hits really hard. Throughout these battles, you'll see that my Fomantis is only single moved because Leaf Blades are basically all you'll be throwing anyways. But if you must insist on a second charge move, Grass Knot is the one to have. I'm also running Quick Attack Vulpix on the safe swap, where besides it being an extremely strong safe swap, it works to bait out the Chinchou that Ducklett absolutely doesn't want to see. And with that, let's get right into the battles. Alright, getting to the first battle, we lead Fomantis into Shadow Lileep. You'll see me swap into my Vulpix right away. What I do recommend doing instead is staying in and throwing a Leaf Blade to either guarantee massive damage or a shield, and then safe swapping into your Vulpix. But right here, we do shield up the ancient power from the Lileep, and in comes the Ducklett to meet our Vulpix. The fortunate thing for us is that this Ducklett has given us a huge energy advantage, so we're now able to start spamming off these body slams against the Ducklett, and we do get the first shield on the CMP tied to their Bubble Beam. So we are going to let this go because we will survive it. We are not in any threat of being farmed down. Then we'll load up and throw our next body slam on what should have been a CMP tie, but my opponent smartly over farms, and now they're going to throw their next Bubble Beam right before we get to our body slam. Takes us out, and now we're going to commit to a very ambitious Fury Cutter down. Unfortunately, I a little bit of overestimated how much damage those Fury Cutters would do, so my opponent is able to grab a shield from us, and they'll instantly swap back into our Lileep, and look how much that Leaf Blade does. It does so much damage onto that Lileep. Absolutely incredible. But now they bring in a Shadow Executor. Leaf Blade is going to guarantee that final shield for my opponent. And Execute does have access to ancient power. We're able to hang on. Ducklett is extremely bulky. Get to this Brave Bird, which will definitely take out the Execute. I didn't think Bubble Beam would be able to do it, but here we simul KO, but we still have that very low health Fomantis to take it for a good game. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we have a Ducklett on the lead. Now in this one, what you're going to want to stay in is you're going to want to throw this Leaf Blade as soon as you get it, since it is 9 turns to a Leaf Blade, and it is 10 turns to a Bubble Beam from the Ducklett. 1 turn versus 2 turn fast moves. You'll always be throwing on good timing if you throw it right away. So you throw it right away, swap into your Vulpix, and I recommend not shielding anything that the Ducklett throws at your Vulpix, because 9 out of 10 times they're going to go straight for the Bubble Beam. If they go for that Brave Bird, props to them. But not, like I said, 9 times out of 10 they'll go for the Bubble Beam, and it's going to be way more advantageous than not to save your shields for the end game. So then you'll see here my opponent actually brings in a Chikorita, and this makes me think that they're very weak to the Vulpix in the back, potentially double grass back line. And if that's the case, I'm just going to save 2 shields for the Ducklett and let it sweep. So Chikorita will be throwing off a body slam. I will commit the first shield here, and then I'm going to farm all the way down. They will reach another move, but that's perfectly fine for me because I do have 1 shield left, and I will have a Brave Bird plus tons of energy for what they have in the back, but my opponent concedes the match. GG's to them. Next battle, we lead Fomantis into Lotad. This is a really good matchup for us as we're hitting super effective with the Fury Cutters and neutral with the Leaf Blades. My opponent swaps into an Execute. I do throw a Leaf Blade into the Execute before I swap out, because Fomantis does not care about typings. If it's a resisted move, it's still going to do at least half health to your opponent's Pokemon. So it's very good at guaranteeing shields for the Ducklett to then potentially sweep the endgame. But the thing with Fomantis is pretty much when your opponent safe swaps into your Fomantis, you're almost always going to want to throw a Leaf Blade first and then counter swap against it. Because like I said, by throwing a Leaf Blade first, you guarantee a shield advantage or massive damage, and that will allow you to take switch very often. So now in this matchup, we have our Vulpix up against the Ducklett. They are going to survive that body slam, just barely be able to farm us down. I'm going to bring in my Ducklett right away. And I'm going to save my shield for my Fomantis in this case, as I do know that they have that Razor Leaf Lotad in the back, which is definitely not going to appreciate this Leaf Blade, as it almost takes it out. A couple more Fury Cutters do the job. And now that Ducklett will be able to get the farm down on my Fomantis, but we still have a shield, so we can safely shield here and then farm down their Ducklett for a good game. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we have Fomantis up against another Ducklett. As you can see throughout these battles, Ducklett is a very popular lead in this cup. So just like the last time on the Ducklett lead, we're going to go for a Leaf Blade right away. Swap into our Vulpix. I'm going to no shield here because this can only be a Bubble Beam or an Aerial Ace. Some Duckletts are running Aerial Ace in this cup, but either way, that is perfectly fine for my Vulpix to pick. And they swap Chikorita into my Vulpix again. So potentially Ducklett double grass back line, which does make sense. As they see a Chinchou on the lead, they do have two answers for it in the back. So I do throw this Weather Ball on CMP tie to the Chikorita, which we win. And my opponent actually ends up giving a shield right there. So, you know what? I'm cool with that. I'm going to let it go and instead get a Fury Cutter advantage, so that I can reach another move against this Ducklett. Very bad timing by me. As you'll see, I throw on alignment, giving them a free wing attack. And that is actually going to be very huge, as that keeps us from reaching our next Leaf Blade. And now we're kind of in a little bit of a pickle right here. I will bring in my Ducklett right away, but they do have a Chinchou of their own in the back. My opponent read my Vulpix safe swap very well and was able to keep their Chinchou alignment to my Ducklett in the end game. Speaking of Ducklett, we see another one on the lead. So like the past two times you've seen, gonna go throw this Leaf Blade right away and then swap in my Vulpix. And GG's to my opponent last game, by the way. Very well played. And now I'm gonna let this go. And this is one of those rare times my opponent does go for their Brave Bird, but that's fine, because you'll see we are still able to bait out that Chinchou. So now I'm gonna wait my timer fully. Load up on energy, throw this Leaf Blade right before they get to the Thunderbolt, because a Thunderbolt would be enough to take out my Fomantis from here. And it actually does get a shield from my opponent. Leaf Blade would one-shot the Chinchou from that health range. And they do go for the Thunderbolt, which is perfectly fine by me. I'm going to load up a ton of energy and throw on the CMP tie to their Bubble Beam to maximize my energy gain. This does take out the Lurantis. Back in comes the Ducklett, which I am just able to outpace to this Leaf Blade before we go down to those wing attacks. So what my opponent wants to do, they let their Ducklett go, and they have a Bulbasaur in the back, and this is just going to be game over, as I can fire off this Bubble Beam. And my opponent's going to let it go. They know it's just a Bubble Beam, but that puts it in wing attack down range for us. I will commit my final shield right here. It is the Sludge Bomb. And now we can wing attack all the way down the Bulbasaur. GG's to my opponent. Next battle, we lead Fomantis into Chikorita. So as I said previously, even though this may seem like a bad matchup for the Fomantis, since we are able to hit with Leaf Blade, and we have two better answers for it in the back, so why don't we swap out right away, right? Well, in pretty much all situations, unless it's a Cottonee Lead, you'll want to swap in your Vulpix right away. But in pretty much all situations other than that, you're going to want to stay in and throw a Leaf Blade before you swap out or before you match your opponent's counter swap. Leaf Blade from Fomantis is just that good in this cup. But here, normally I will throw a Leaf Blade and then counter swap a Ducklett with my own Vulpix. But in this case, they allowed me to get a Leaf Blade of damage off on their Ducklett, as well as get a shield. So then, in that case, I brought in my own Ducklett so I can get an energy advantage, given that I already have shield advantage. Now in this situation, we are able to get off this Brave Bird, which takes out the Chikorita. I hard swap into my Lurantis. I am able to reach this Leaf Blade. And you'll see, like I've been saying, this is a resisted move and still brings the Vulpix down to just about half health. And since we're both non-Shadow Vulpixes, I should have this game in the bag, as I can survive one Body Slam and I can survive a second Body Slam and get to my own. But no need to, as I do win the CMP tie and take out theirs. GG's. Next battle, we lead Fomantis into Shadow Vulpix. So we're going to stay in, as always, throw this Leaf Blade. And this will do some pretty hefty damage to that Vulpix. So, yeah, that's a fire type shielding a grass type move. It's absolutely crazy. Now we're going to bring in our own Vulpix here. You can shield one, take one, doesn't matter what order you do it. But you will end up having to give up a shield at some point. If you want to get off your own Body Slam, which you do. My opponent actually ends up spending both of their shields on this Vulpix, and I would outpace the next Body Slam, so instead they decide to store that energy. They are one quick attack off their next move and catch it on a Chinchou. The Chinchou does get a perfect farm down, but we have a great answer for this Chinchou in our Fomantis. So we do shield the Thunderbolt, as again, a Thunderbolt would threaten a KO from this range. And here, I could have thrown right away, but I know I'm still not in a health range where a Bubble Beam would threaten me. So instead, I decide to go for the full Fury Cutter down, leave with almost 3 Leaf Blades stored. I do throw this move right away since I am at 100 energy. And I also throw this next one right away because, as you'll see, that wing attack does take me out. And I just wanted to get the move off in time. I'm going to go for the Bubble Beam on the CMP tie, which we are very fortunate to win. And now, since we did end up winning that CMP tie, we are in the driver's seat for this match, as Ducklett can easily take one Body Slam from the Vulpix and get to this Bubble Beam before the opposing Vulpix reaches another Body Slam of their own. GG's. Next battle, we lead Fomantis into Cottonee. So we're going to swap into our Vulpix right away, see what kind of answer they have for it, potentially bait out that Chinchou. My opponent is actually going to stay in, get some charm damage off first, and then bring in their own Shadow Slowbro. It's kind of unfortunate for my opponent because they did allow me to get a massive energy advantage. So now I'm going to be able to get 3 Body Slams off against this Slowbro and take Slowpoke and take Switch, or 2 shield to 0. My opponent decides they want to go down both shields to keep Switch advantage. So here I'm going to bring in my Fomantis and just Fury Cutter down this Slowpoke. I will have to give up 1 shield of my own right here, but now I do have a good energy advantage. And as you've guys seen how much Leaf Blade does, even a Pokemon that resists Leaf Blade doesn't really want to take one. But now I am going to swap into my Ducklett right away, as since they are down, since they do have 0 shields, my Brave Bird will be able to potentially nuke whatever they have in the back. And here you'll see me go for the Bubble Beam first, because from this range a Brave Bird isn't quite going to do it. So I go for the Bubble Beam to then put them in Brave Bird range, knowing I still outpace the opposing Ducklett. Now the Cottonee does get a little bit of a farm down here, but they only have grass moves as well. Fomantis is very, very glassy, but it can tank a grass move from this health range from the Cottonee if needed. But it wasn't needed, as we do take that one. GG's. Next match, Fomantis into Vulpix. So we're going to stay in, throw this Leaf Blade, and then safe swap into our own Vulpix. It sounds like a broken record at this point, but that is the play to do in this cup. So now we're going to meet it right here. We will take a Body Slam. Now we're going to go for our own Body Slam, and my opponent makes a very nice catch onto their Seal. I'm going to load up some extra energy, throw this next move on what would be the CMP tied to their Aqua Tail. But my opponent, very smart, is over farming and was going to go for the lick down, but then decided against it as they do end up firing away an Aqua Tail. I'm debating here which one I bring in. Do I go for the one shield farm down on my Fomantis, or do I go for an ambitious wing attack down on my Seal? I decide on my Ducklett against their Seal, and I decide on my Ducklett, but unfortunately the opposing Seal does reach an Icy Wind, and I'm saying I'm gonna Brave Bird right away. Nothing really wants to take a debuff Brave Bird anyways, unless it's a Chinchou. And now my opponent has the alignment they want. They did not fall for the Vulpix bait to try and draw out that Chinchou. And here my only win condition is really to just commit to a Fury Cutter down. But I realize I'm not going to be able to do it regardless, so I might as well just spam off these Leaf Blades that I have all of this energy for. Either way, their Vulpix does take out my Fomantis. I then wing attack it down and concede the match. GG's, well played to my opponent. Heading to the final battle, we do lead Fomantis into Chinchou. This is the absolute dream lead. We're going to see what my opponent wants to do. They save swap into a Vulpix, and since I don't have a great answer to a Vulpix save swap, I'm going to throw Leaf Blade, and then here, instead of going into my own Vulpix, I go into my Ducklett. Since I know that they have their Chinchou on the lead, I don't want to potentially somehow lose switch and then end up with my Ducklett on the Chinchou. Also, I know that Ducklett can take 2 body slams from the opposing Vulpix, no problem. So I do take that, throw this Bubble Beam right before they reach their next move. So this forces them to give up a shield if they want to make a play for switch. But they realize at this point that they won't be able to take switch advantage, which is great for me. And they also give minimal farm to the opposing Chinchou. My opponent insta swaps and they meet it with a Swaddle, and I have absolutely no idea what the Swaddle's moveset is. Who knows, maybe it could have some rock type coverage like Execute and Credilli have, or who knows what its moveset is. So I do decide to respect it. I give it a shield just in case, and it ends up just being a Seed Bomb. So that's perfectly fine. I can let this next one go. Get to the back-to-back moves. First Weather Ball will get their final shield, and the second Weather Ball will take out the Swaddle. As it comes through right here, Swaddle goes down. I'm now going to insta swap into my Fomantis. The opposing Chinchou does reach a move, so I will give up my last shield here. It is a bubble, just a Bubble Beam, no problem. We are debuffed right here, so do you think this Leaf Blade will still be enough? Oh yeah, still enough to take out the Chinchou. That is a debuffed move, just absolutely crazy. And that is the end of the video. Now Fomantis is a very fun Pokemon to use if you want to give it a try, but it is extremely glassy, so that's why I paired it up with 2 more bulkier picks in the Little Cup. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate you. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like, subscribe, and comment down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.